Hello,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, and I hope the day was good on your side too.
Yeah, relaxed Sunday, so no complaints.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, sir, we are going to start, because the tradition says that when we start, the guest have to present himself in his own way.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Or if I may ask, who is Sir Ayodele Olajiga?
All right. Yeah. Well, I would describe myself at the moment as an investor, mentor, entrepreneur, business coach. I've had over 20 something plus years now, I've been very, very lucky to have done different things from management consulting to investment banking to starting a business. Also, started a non-for-profit education entity as well. So I've been very fortunate over the last 20 plus years to have done, various things. But at the moment, I'm focused on, investing and also helping businesses scale their operations.
Wow, wow. Yeah, so sir, when we announced your arrival on the career show, many viewers took a pragmatic approach of your industry in processing and production of cashew nut product. Like, what exactly does it refer to?
Oh, so I mean, cashew nuts, in terms of Foodpro, I mean, what Foodpro does is,
Is that-
Foodpro, basically buys cashew nuts from farmers and traders, and they've got a factory in Nigeria where you have about 400 employees, process cashew nuts into kernels, and they have two products. There are two products at that end: kernels for wholesale export to the US and the EU, and then also we also then have a part of the factory that finishes it into final consumer products like salted cashews, um, you know cinnamon coated cashews, honey coated cashews under two brands, Lion Cashews and Go Nuts.
Wow. Yeah, so what motivated your choice of sector, like to process cashew nut? Does the sector have a niche or opening opportunities?
Yeah, look, I mean, the sector itself, it's a what do you call it? It's a sector that, so I think between 50 to 60% of cashew nuts is grown in Africa, between mostly West Africa and some East Africa. However, only about 10% of it is processed in Africa. The rest is shipped off to the Far East, India, and mostly Vietnam for processing, and then comes back to the other side of Atlantic going into the US and EU. So the whole idea of Foodpro is obviously trying to add value to cashew nuts in Africa. And there are quite a number of factories that are coming up now. So, I find that I'm very glad about that because I think if we're growing 50 to 60% of it, then we should be processing a large portion of it as well.
Wow, wow. Yeah, so we know that entrepreneurship journey is never straight, like it's composed of up and down. Yeah, so if you can share with us your worst experience in business.
Oh wow. I mean, I think my worst experience happened, I think it was in 2018, where we had, obviously we bought a lot of cashew nuts, at what turned out to be the height of the market. I mean, obviously we were not traders, we were processing, but we bought cashew nuts at the height of the market, and then all of a sudden, the market both at the input and the output end collapsed. So prices went from, maybe if we use the number 100, they went from 100 to maybe 20. And so we were sitting on cashews that were bought at 100. So, I mean, that for me was probably the most difficult period of time. But then it became, a learning period because what it is you've got to make sure that the risks that you take on are risks that you are both equipped and positioned to manage. Because if you take on risks that you cannot manage, or you're not positioned to manage it, then you're on a roller coaster. And when you're on a roller coaster, the only thing you can do is just be screaming. That's all.
Wow, wow. Yeah, so we are talking about the cash nut product, but we are we are all because talking about the agricultural sector because
Yes.
we believe that agriculture is the future. Yeah,
Okay.
but many people equate agriculture to poverty.
Okay.
Yeah, so but the question is, what can we do, like to change that mind, that way of thinking of people, and also how what can be done to make agriculture more beneficial for farmers?
Well, I think, look, the way agriculture is thought about now at the moment is really, it's people are usually typically when they're talking agriculture, a lot of times they're talking about the you're talking about the what do you call it? The really small subsistence farming, you know. But when you think about agriculture and you think about when you think in terms of value chains, then there's a lot of value in agriculture. Until now, in Africa, we typically most value chains play in the areas where there's really no, we don't play where we can capture the value. So for instance, for me personally, I mean, if you think about any value chain, you should try as much as possible to be at the end where you're dealing with the consumer. I mean, you can almost, compare it to what's going on in the technology space, where everybody want to own the consumers because that's where the value is created. So if you think about agriculture in Africa, then you should be thinking about, creating value added products for consumers. But at the moment, a lot of what we do is, produce inefficiently large quantities of raw materials, which we then ship to other markets, which they're converting into products in multiples of X of whatever they bought it for.
Wow, wow. Yeah, so if you were asked to name a five growth sector in Africa in the next 20 years, what would you say?
Five growth sectors. I mean, obviously, I have a bias towards agriculture and food. So I think, yeah, that would be number one. I think you're also going to see a lot of growth in technology, just because that's where the world is going. Then, I mean, areas where I think, manufacturing would grow in Africa, but again, manufacturing for it to grow, a lot of the African governments need to change their operating environment. But manufacturing definitely, um, I mean, those are the three areas I'm focused on. But you can also, I think, entertainment will always grow. Yeah, I'll stick with those four. And then someone on there is saying automation. But I mean, it depends on what kind of automation you're talking about. But yes, look, I mean, if you look at Africa, if you look at the African continent, anything that's allowing people to be more efficient and effective will definitely grow.
Wow, wow. Yeah, so please, if you have any question, please just put it in the comment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
I'm
the
so
thing. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Sorry. The other thing that I just, with all this AFCTA that is signed, obviously we're yet to see how they will implement it.
like,
But what it has effectively done is to create one single market on paper in Africa. Now, if we were to explore that one single market in Africa, then you could argue that almost every sector would see a significant boost because, in theory, it's supposed to open up the African markets to African producers, right? The question is, so a lot of things that have been imported into Africa, the idea is that if you can produce them efficiently on the continent, you will see that grow. And obviously, if you look at, in the European Union, for instance, where Germany is a very strong player, I think more than 50% of their trade is with their neighbors. So we expect, if we implement properly, the same kind of development across Africa.
wow, wow. So, but do you think that with agriculture, like return on investment is quite relevant? Like take into consideration the infrastructure in Africa.
Yeah, look, I mean, infrastructure does make it very difficult in Africa, and because of that, and that's why I always told most people that if you're going to play in Africa, you got to play end to end, because if you don't do that, then your investment is at risk. Obviously, then it makes The investment, it makes the investment level higher, because if I'm going to play end to end, that means the amount of capital I deploy is going to be much higher. But if you don't do that, then your business is at the risk of all the different infrastructure challenges, we have on the continent. Because for instance, if I decide I'm only going to farm, I don't want to add value to it, then I'm at the mercy of little traders who, if they show up to pick up the produce, fine. What if they don't show up? Then, am I going to eat all my produce? So obviously it makes the bar higher, but it also means that you've got to, if you want to have that return, you've got to do everything, almost everything, or do it in a kind of partnership where everybody is sharing the return.
Okay, okay. So, sir, before we go to the next question, we're talking about free trade, like agreement about free trade. But if you can, I want us to go back on that side, because there's the question that comes generally is, are people concerned really prepared on what are awaiting them? Like, do things that the entrepreneurs or young African are prepared or are aware of what will go on with the free trade? Or if you can tell us, if you can just tell us in few line the impact that it can have on development on the African continent.
Well, look, I think, I think the good thing for younger entrepreneurs is that they don't have the legacy of all the things that hasn't worked across the continent. But, because when you think about free trade, if you look at, let's take ECOWAS, for instance. ECOWAS has never worked, right? ECOWAS is supposed to be a free trade, free movement of goods and services and people and everything. But anyone from ECOWAS will tell you that you can't move freely. Yes, you don't need to get a visa, but you can't move freely across the economic community of West Africa, right? Now, but now we're talking about free movement, across the continent, right? If you're talking about free movement across the continent, those who have the legacy of, the ECOWAS not working might think, oh, this might not work. But for those who are, new entrepreneurs who don't have that legacy, the idea is that we have to test everything. We have to test whether AFCTA will work once it comes into operations. But the reality is that, if Africa doesn't make it work, then we will continue to talk about Africa from a potential perspective, not from a large market perspective. Because think about it, if I think I can't remember whether it's a billion or whatever the number of people across the continent is. If those start to trade, freely, and people can move freely, it's a massive continent, and this is the youngest continent. So everything is there. You just need a little bit of ambition from African governments to say, look, we've signed AFCTA, so drop all your egos and let the markets work.
Wow, wow, wow. So, what is your opinion on the business environment in Nigeria? Do you think that is favorable for foreigners, like from people from other African countries?
Look, I mean, the business environment in Nigeria is challenging, yes, from an operational perspective. From whether it's open to foreigners, the business environment in Nigeria is open to anyone, really. I mean, even as a foreigner, you can start a business. You don't need, in most sectors, you don't need local partners, and so it's very open. And I think for Nigeria, what Nigeria needs is what I was talking about earlier, which is just get rid of all of this, regulations that are old, development, innovation, efficiency, all of those things back. Get rid of it, and then you suddenly have an environment that is very vibrant. I mean, Nigeria's got a very large market. However, Nigeria is held back by, an operating environment where the government does too much, or well, let's say the government wants to do too much.
Wow, wow, wow. So we're talking about digital, and the question that I want to ask you is, what's the place that digital plays in your activity?
Well, I mean,
The role.
digital has almost become like, under at least at the moment for me personally, 100% of what I do, right? Because at the moment where I am, we're completely locked down. So anybody I want to interact with, we do it through a digital means. And what that has done also is that it's opened up the markets that either two were not available. because now you can deal with anyone anywhere in the world. Zoom, Teams, all of that stuff. You can do business with anybody anywhere in the world, and I think it's also just created a much bigger market for folks.
Wow, wow, wow. So, sir, talking about, we are going to talk about now COVID-19, because we know the pandemic has affected many young African entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, all people all over the world. Yeah. So, as an advisor of to several companies, what do you recommend to companies, especially young entrepreneurs, to deal with the COVID-19?
Well, look, I mean, COVID-19 is something that everybody is still grappling with. I mean, governments all over the world still haven't figured out how to solve it. But as a business person, we've got to now move on to a phase where you've got to just live with it, in the sense that, all the protocols are there. So make sure you're observing all of that protocol. And in that context, you have to now start thinking about, look, how do I grow my business? How do I ensure that the value proposition that I have to my customers, is it still there? Do I need to change anything to maintain or improve that value proposition? And then and get on with it, because I read somewhere today that COVID-19 might be with us till 2022, or even maybe longer, because a lot of, if you listen to governments, I wish all governments would just come out and just be honest. We don't know, we're learning, and so that we all know that, because from time to time you hear people make it sound like they figured out what the answer is, but nobody has, right? So there's the emotional part of it, which is, people are dying, which, depending on who you are, it's more on people, some people than some people. But yes, that's there, and it's really sad. We've got to deal with that. But on the business side, you've got to motor on and carry on, because if you wait till when the pandemic is over, you will have no business.
Wow, wow. So, sir, we know that Africa is increasingly undermined by the arrival of incubators for entrepreneurs, but there are always difficulties in facilitating the emergence of new entrepreneurs. So, what do you think is missing?
Well, I mean, look, I think when I think about entrepreneurship in Africa, I mean, like I think it was I can't remember who was saying it, that the entrepreneurs in Africa, I mean, when you get to heaven, all entrepreneurs from the continent will be allowed to just go straight to heaven, because people have been through what they've been through on the African continent with their business is probably a hell on its own. But it's the way I think about it. Like, a lot of businesses are started because there's a hustle. People need to survive. They're trying to make money on the side and stuff like that. And that sometimes often makes it very difficult for that business to scale very quickly. But if you take a step back and you ask yourself, what problem, what game changing problem can I solve? Right? Those kind of problems, those kind of businesses have a significant runway to go, because oftentimes when you solve a problem, then in solving that problem, you create a lot of value. In creating a lot of value, you create a business that is valuable. I mean, I was a friend of mine recently started a business in Nigeria where the idea is to give you a driver on demand. So all of a sudden, I don't have to have a full-time driver if I don't need one, but I can get a driver on demand. And that kind of business, I think has significant runway. So, for instance, if you were traveling to Nigeria and you had a car there and you needed a driver, you can just go on to Drive Me, I think Drive Me dash NG, and you get access to a driver. You don't have to worry about, can the person drive? Do they know Lagos? Do they know all of that stuff? And I think that's a real problem has been solved. So if a lot more of that comes out, you'll see businesses do better.
Wow, wow. So, sir, many young Africans state the problem of financing as the brake on the development of their business. But you raised $8 million for your business. So, the question that I would ask is, how does it work? What is expected from any young African who wishes to raise funds for his business?
Well, look, I mean, fundraising, it's on the continent is challenging, and a lot of that is because the ecosystem for fundraising is not complete. It is growing, but it's not complete because if you see everywhere else in the world, you have angel investors who then go into VCs, then go into PE and all of that stuff. On the other side, you've also got, you got banks who lend at reasonable rates. But when you look at Africa, well, I mean, maybe I speak of Nigeria now because I don't know all of Africa. You don't have, I mean, it's emerging, but you don't have a lot of angel investors who are looking to put money in businesses. That's one. The second thing is that, a lot of people are what do you call it? Over invested in, I own the business type behavior, whereby they want to own 100% of it. So they're not looking at doing partnerships. But, and then the final one is, look, if you're trying to raise money from a bank, I spent 10 years in a bank. Banks lend money to people who don't need money. Banks don't lend money to people who need money. And that's the way banking is structured because, banks take money, they take your deposits, my deposits, and they're not allowed to take unreasonable risk with it. So, and most entrepreneurial ventures are very, almost in the category of unreasonable risk because 90 some percent of them are going to fail.
Wow. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, okay. Yeah, so before we proceed, I would just like to ask you, yeah, if you have any question, please just put it in the comment or in the chat box. Oh, okay. So, like, what advice can you give to any young African who was in Nigeria and who is looking for fun to start a business, to develop the idea?
Well, I mean, look, I think the first thing is that obviously your idea must be solving a real problem. Because if you're not solving a real problem, then maybe spend a bit more time developing that idea. But if you have an idea, look, I think the first place to start is it's probably your friends, family, and if you can find angel investors around you. Though having said that, there are like you said earlier, there are incubators that are coming up from time to time looking to help join. Yeah, I think that. But I think it's just important to make sure you're solving a problem.
And also,
Are you still there? Yeah, I can. Did you hear me or I
I
was
can hear
speaking to
you.
myself?
Work down with the network, but I think it's okay now.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Okay. Yeah, so, if you were asked to set up a program to promote the return of the diaspora to Africa, what would you think would be the three different pillars?
As in getting diaspora to return to Africa.
Exactly.
Well, look, I mean, honestly speaking, I mean, when you look at the African environment compared to where most diaspora are living, the quality of life, first of all, it's important to address. If you don't address the quality of life, I mean, I think for someone who's living somewhere else, it's always very difficult for them to, you know, for them to up and go to an environment where suddenly things are going to be very difficult for them. So if I was to try to attract people back to most of these countries, it's just simple things like make sure the rule of law works, make sure there is, there's security, there's safety, have incentives for people coming back. Yeah, I mean, because it's really about the quality of life and the ability to live safely. Because if you don't have that, an environment, society that works, if you don't have that, why would you be asking people to come back?
Wow, wow, wow. But so, like, the question that I would like to ask you now is, like, what can be done by those young African who have ideas, who want to go for entrepreneurship, but they are just blocked with the issue of because they want to stay in their comfort zone with the salary. The question that they ask themselves is what can they do to leave to leave their job to go for entrepreneurship? What can be done for them to leave their job to go for entrepreneurship?
Look, I mean, so we don't get confused. I mean, my view is that entrepreneurship can be done both in in a 9 to 5 job, and also if you want to go and start a business, so that we don't get confused that starting a business means is what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is just about creating and solving problems, and so look, not everyone is cut out to go and start a business. So there's no point for anybody to feel under any pressure to go and start a business. You can actually, within whichever business you're in, you can still be an entrepreneur. Solving problems, creating new products, bringing new ideas to market. You can do that. And then if you want to go and start a business, then I mean, look, just be ready because starting a business anywhere in the world is challenging. But if you're passionate and ambitious about what problem you're trying to solve, give it a go. And if it doesn't work, you can pick up another opportunity and try again. And if that doesn't work, I mean, then you try again. And if you get tired of trying, go and get a job.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, so I'm seeing a question in the comment. Why the switch from electrical engineering to agro business, and was it challenging?
Okay, well, I mean, the switch wasn't from electrical engineering to agriculture. The switch was actually from electrical engineering to first information technology in the form of switching to Microsoft networks and Unix, Solaris networks, and GSM networks. That was what I did first many years ago now. Before I then went on to business school, which then led me to management consulting, then investment banking, then agriculture. So it took me a while before I got to agriculture. But it
Wow.
wasn't, you know what, it wasn't difficult. I mean, it was, it was exciting because you see, the thing is, once you're learning a lot of things, then it gets very interesting. It's when you're not learning that it becomes really, really challenging. But I have been, as I said earlier, I've been very fortunate to have been able to move, in my career from, technology to consulting to I did, worked in a mine, all different things that I've, gotten the privilege to do. So for me, it's been more of a privilege than a challenge. I mean, obviously, it's been, some of it has been very tough, but today I can speak and help, with businesses in different areas just because of, that very wide experience.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm seeing a question in the comment like, do you think that being in a country like Nigeria, which has over 100 million people, is benefit for you as an entrepreneur?
Well, look, I mean, in theory, having 100 million people in Nigeria should be beneficial. But at the moment, it's Nigeria is one of those things where you have this challenge around the operating environment that's got to be fixed. Then you also have the fact that the purchasing power is low. So even though it's 100 million people, it can be challenging. But the flip side of that, the benefit of that though, is that, like I said earlier, if you find a problem that this 100 million or even 50 million or 20 million care about, and you solve it in a sustainable way that they can afford it, I mean, that's some serious business.
Well, but I'm seeing a question like how to find the idea or the problem to solve.
Well, I mean, look, the maybe you should do that in form of thinking in terms of value chains. If you care about a particular value chain, you can look at that value chain and say, where's the challenge? What are they strong? What is that one thing that if we took it away, this value chain will function more efficiently? And once you figure that out, and you have a sustainable way of solving that problem, and that's your idea. But what I want people to do is that if you have an idea that you want to bring to market, figure out a way where you can do it very quickly and do it in a very, I guess, sustainable or cheap way. So maybe applying design thinking to do a prototype and quickly test it out, so that you don't spend years, a long time in the lab or wherever it is, solving a problem that by the time you come out nobody cares about. So you have to find a way to very quickly start to, either co-create or co-solve the problem with your customers or potential customers as well.
Okay. So I'm seeing another question in the comment, like, how will you say technology impact the agricultural sector at the manufacturing and the distribution level?
Well, I mean, so technology is obviously affecting, I guess in a positive way, agricultural value chain or manufacturing, because it's solving problems. For instance, there are different technologies around how you can improve yield on the farm, and people are testing that and they're continuously improving that, and that's something I would like to see more in Africa, because at the moment the growth in agriculture in Africa is more acreage and less about yield. And so that means we're just farming more land, not necessarily producing more from the same piece of land. And we need to produce more from the same piece of land. I mean, because that's where you create value, and then as you go across the value chain, in the farm, in the factories, you're seeing, different technologies being deployed. And as you do that, factories and farms all just get more efficient.
Wow, wow. So, sir, as an investor, like, what is the impact, or what do you offer to young African, like, who have ideas, like, how do you assist them?
Well, so I mean, look, so we try to we invest in, in existing businesses that are profitable, but with people who are starting new businesses, oftentimes a lot more is just around, advice, ideation, or and stuff like that. Not necessarily investments, but depending on what problem is being solved, it's possible we might be able to invest. But in general, we focus more on, businesses that already have traction. But I also spend quite a bit of time, advising new businesses as well.
Wow, wow, wow. So before going to the other section, the section of advice, like, the question I will ask is, or like, if an entrepreneur maybe watching this live have an ideas or a business that you want to take it to another level, how can he reach to you, well, maybe for advice or maybe for an accompaniment?
Sure, I mean, you can just, I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you can just send me a DM, or a direct message, and I can try and be as helpful as I can. Yeah, so I think that's the easiest thing. Or once you go to my Instagram, you can also see my website and check some of the stuff I'm doing, and we can connect that way.
Okay, okay, sure. So now we are going to the second part, that is all about the advice. And the question that I would
Okay.
like to ask you is, according to you, what are the 5 rules to be successful in life?
What are the five
Rules to be
to be
successful
successful?
in
Okay,
life.
well, I think I don't know if I have five, but the first thing I would say is that, look, you've got to be very, very clear on what you want. I mean, the clarity of what you want and what you want to do is very, very crucial. If you're clear, so clarity is very important. The second thing is you got to realize you don't have all the time in the world. So, you don't, I mean, all of us are every minute, every day, we're dying slowly. We're in the process. It's literally since you were born, you were in the process of dying. So, and you don't know when you're going to die. So it's very important that when you have clarity on what you want, you've got to take action. I mean, there's no point, wanting something, then not taking any action, right? The third thing, which is, I would recommend this book if you haven't read it. I read it often, which is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's it's about, you have to manage your perception. And what does that mean? Everything that happens in life has no meaning until you attach a meaning to it. So, like, and let me take an extreme. Let me take, if you lose your job, is neither good nor bad if you lose your job until you decide, is it good or is it bad? And that's the power you have. Unfortunately, most of us we operate automatically where, oh, I've lost my job, and the next thing is your hand goes to your head. It's simply because, yeah, we have obligations, and if you lose your job, salary is not coming. So ideally, it's a bad thing. But if you hang on just 2-3 seconds and say, I want to interpret this situation differently. I've just lost my job, and this means that, I now have time to go and pursue something else, right? So you change your perception of how you perceive things. And then linked to that perception is you got to then make sure that that perception is driving what you do. So for me, you should spend, if you manage your perception, then the next thing is don't waste your time with things that are outside your control. For instance, if you imagine if I'm on this live now, imagine if I was concerned about, oh, what do people think I'm doing? Do people like what I'm saying? If I worry about, I don't even know who is listening, who's watching the live. I don't know anyone watching the live. So imagine if I spend all my time worried about what they were thinking. I mean, I'll be a nervous wreck. I'll sit here sweating, trying to answer questions, which are really questions that are based on what I've experienced, what I know. I'm being asked to give my opinion. It's my opinion. You can have a different opinion. So for me, I would say it's also important to focus all your energy on things that you control. And then finally, just live life, man. That's what life is for, to live. So I've managed to get to 5. I mean, I didn't think I had 5, but I think if you have clarity, if you take action, and then you manage your perception, focus on things you control, and then lastly, just enjoy life.
Wow. Yo, I'm seeing a comment like from Asha Jenny. I personally think to each their own, as long as you know what you want. People succeed with 9, 5, other begin before going on their
No,
own.
I mean,
Yeah.
Aisha is absolutely right. Do you know that, like for instance, some of the employees in Facebook, right? If you think in terms of wealth, for instance, are going to make more money than most entrepreneurs will make in their lifetime. And these guys are employees in Facebook, right? They're going to do that. Some employees in Facebook are going to have more impact on the world than a lot of entrepreneurs are going to have in their lifetime, right? So this entrepreneurship doesn't mean, oh, you got to leave your job and go and start a company. You can be an entrepreneur anywhere. It's entrepreneurship is about creating stuff. And so solving problems, and that's where I urge people to think about it, so that because I've met some young entrepreneurs where I've thought, you should go get a job, go and learn something. I mean, I would never say that to someone, but that would be the opinion I had in the situation. But I mean, you still hear me?
Hello.
I think I lost you. Can you still hear me? Oh no.
Okay. Hello. Can you understand? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you for a little while there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm seeing another question, I think, from African here, who is saying that speaking about the solution that solve problem. Do you think that it is imperative for the young generation to begin through the salary position, work for the companies or in many sectors, have the experience before going for entrepreneurship?
Well, so look, I mean, I don't want to prescribe a particular way to do it because different problems, require different things. So if you take, for instance, a lot of the companies in the US they've come out of their universities from their research programs and all of that stuff. You realize that it's not 100% that you have to go and get a job. Then when you finish the job, then go and become an entrepreneur. Depending on where you are, what problem you're solving, you can't go direct from school to do it. I think one of the biggest issues that we face on the continent is the fact that our universities are substandard in the sense that if you look at the US, I take that as an example, or even in the UK as well, or many of these countries where a lot of things are happening, it's largely driven by a very strong education system, where there's, because at the end of the day, it's research that is, we there's a problem. We start to do research around, okay, how do we solve the problem? The universities have, especially in the US and co, have significant amount of funding to allow entrepreneurs or students, test their ideas, and that idea becomes a product. That product then gets venture funding, and that funded venture becomes a company. But if you look at Africa, I mean, if you take, Nigeria or any of those places, I mean, there's hardly any research going on at the university level to solve any problem. So if you look at a lot of things that we do in Africa, we've been doing them the same way for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Nobody has even challenged, the way you're doing it. Does it make sense?
Wow, wow. Okay, so the next question is, how do you do to stay motivated no matter how difficult situation comes? And what advice can you give to young entrepreneurs like who are facing adversity?
Look, I think the first thing is that you've got to be clear on why you're doing what you're doing. I think and it's very important to be very clear on that before you start, because when difficult times come, because they're sure to come, they will come. So do you? It's that why that gets you through, right? And then the second thing is you got to go through whatever you're going through very quickly, And I often say, look, there was during the lockdown in Nigeria, I was doing some videos, like 1 minute videos, where I was telling, and I usually end the videos with, you need to practice extreme, realism and maximum flexibility. And the point I was trying to get across is, you know, don't face the reality, whatever it is. Just accept what it is. I mean, I'm not saying don't try to change your situation, but be honest about the situation. So don't die 1,000 times. Die once. Okay, this is this. We have accepted it. Okay, how do I move forward? Rather than feel bad or struggle with the issue for years without accepting it, then you're just dying every day, like they call it a death by 1,000 cuts. There's no point. If you're gonna die, die. There's no point in the slow death.
Wow, wow. So we are almost at the end of the show. So the last question that I will ask is, what advice can you give to young and future entrepreneurs and African leaders listening to us?
Well, what I would say is, look, I mean, go out there and solve some of Africa's big problems. Be very ambitious about it. The worst that can happen is it doesn't work, and then you get an opportunity to try again. But I would definitely advise everyone, go out there, think big, and whatever you do, just make sure you take action.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, so we are at the end of the show. So what I will ask is, what is your impression about the career show?
Well, I mean, thank you for having me on. It's it is the first time I've interacted with the show, so I like it, and I think we should try and get more people on, and hopefully we get to continue to interact together one way or the other.
Wow, 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 wow. So, sir, we just like to thank you for accepting our invitation. Yeah, we thank you for your time, for all what you share, because we learned enough today. So we just want to thank you for
Thank
accepting
you.
our.
Thank you.
Okay, and I will just also want to thank you all for listening to the show, and just tell you just to stay tuned on the Career Show. Yeah, so we wish you all a happy Sunday and a good week. So thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, bye bye. Thank you very much.